I don't know about you guys, but there seems to be a lot in common between Southeast Asia and the Balkans. Perfectly democratic political structures, excellent development, a neighboring superpower that does a lot of trolling, and an internet culture of casual racism among countries in the region. And it makes a lot more sense if you know what I'm talking about regarding the racism thing. Like, motherfuckers will hate on each other and come up with the most foul and vicious racial slurs you ever heard to throw at each other. And they all look the same.
Another thing these two places have in common is the occurrence of rampant alcoholism in some areas. Sometimes as a result of people trying to cope, or if it's just part of the drinking culture. All jokes aside, the Balkans and Southeast Asia really do have something special when it comes to cultural similarities, and I think that cool shit like this should be brought up more often. But before we really get into what these places have in common, we need to get into why these similarities occurred in the first place. To put it simply, throughout most of history, both regions were sort of crossroads for any empires around it that desired to expand their territory further. So a lot of the times these countries would get caught between fucking warlords or merchants with an interesting taste in women. Eventually, this led to both regions being influenced by various cultures around them, leading to the places becoming very diverse, both culturally and ethnically. So it's no big surprise that the countries in both of these regions have a sense of brotherhood among them that I like to call divided by borders, united by cheap Reddit racism. It's sort of this sense of brotherhood that's based on regional identity rather than cultural identity or racial identity, combined with the fact that there's worse dickheads all around you that all of you have to worry about. It's like, fuck you, but fuck 'em more. And much like the Balkans, Southeast Asia was known as the area in its continent where most of the epic gaming being conducted was concentrated throughout its history, basically meaning it was a big-ass battleground for any wars its neighbors needed to fight. But fortunately, in recent years, we decided to put aside the whole funny, goofy racism thing and all accept that we're just deep-fried Chinese people with bigger dicks. Nowadays, you can put a person from each country in a room together and they'll get along just fine until a Chinese guy walks in. The same way you can in the Balkans until a gypsy. So now we know why these regions are similar. They're both a crossroads region, they're super fucking racist to each other, but in a nice way. They've had a similar history, they're both kind of poor, and they both have a weird uncle that keeps trying to touch them. And they're both on the southeastern portion of their own respective continents. It's literally a canon event, bro. Now here's where I think crossroads regions like the Balkans and Southeast Asia have a lot more potential to grow than other countries do. Being a country in an unstable region means your people grow to become more resilient compared to motherfuckers that live in stable regions. Because if you were born in a country that was constantly on the brink of collapse or being raided by Central Asian nomadic tribesmen, as opposed to one that centered its territory around the same fucking shit-infested river for 5,000 years, which one do you think would have stronger people? It's also one of the reasons why countries in these regions tend to develop a regional culture of talking shit on each other. Like, they'll hate on each other, but since they all experience the same damn struggles, like, we're in this shit together, they develop stronger ties with each other. This is a hot take, but the more comfortable two motherfuckers are being racist to each other, the stronger their ties are. That's why I feel like places like the Balkans have a much greater sense of brotherhood than in places like Western Europe. Because in the Balkans, it's like, haha, you fuck goats. But yeah, we're still brothers. And in the West, it's like motherfuckers are friendly to each other, but also kind of isolated. It's like telling introverts to have an orgy. Yeah, sure, you have good relations, but would you fuck? So when you have these weak-ass countries that have a sense of brotherhood going against fucking superpowers that are isolationists, you see a lot of potential in these otherwise powerless countries when they start working together. And I'm not shitting you, the stats can speak for themselves. Economic growth in both regions has increased quite a lot since relations got better between their countries. And there's a reason for that too. Regions that were previously ass fucked by poverty and war tend to be pretty populous because people have to reproduce like rats in order to make up for all the motherfuckers dying. So with suffering comes dying. With dying comes the need to make a lot of kids. With kids comes a bigger population. Now here's the thing. There's this thing that happens in countries where as soon as they reach a GDP of 1 billion, their dicks stop working. They can't get hoes anymore. No hoes, no kids. So all of a sudden, rich countries start having a high demand for labor and people. They get their cheap labor from these poor countries with enough kids per woman to match the amount of chromosomes that they have. So nowadays, you'll see things like Korea importing large amounts of big, brown, oiled up jungle people from neighboring countries to work for them. Because Korean hoes love chocolate. And I'll prove my point. I was scrolling through Discord servers I was in the other day, and I hopped in one and I started a call because I was bored. 5 minutes later, some Korean guy joins and we start talking. A few sentences into the conversation, the guy asked me, "Hey man, where you from?" "Vietnam." And I shit you not. This motherfucker goes silent for 2 seconds. It says, "Pound me
jungle daddy with absolute conviction. When I tell you nowadays you have better chances with a hot Latina as a Filipino than a Korean, you'd be surprised how many Filipino motherfuckers I know who've been kidnapped.
Because the way these people think is that the less money a guy has in his pocket, the more he has between his legs. And this, of course, also applies to the Balkans. Shout out to my boy Bazooka getting some Hungarian put. Anyways, let me know what you think, right? If you know any other regions that are kind of like the Balkans or Southeast Asia, feel free to leave it in the comments. Feel free to sexually harass that subscribe button, and I'll see y'all next time.